Hey, everybody, and welcome to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. Coming at you for the week of October 24th through the 30th. It's heating up, kids. This is the beginning of the big intensity of 2022, truly. So last week was really intense.
Last week was so intense. Someone very important to me passed away this summer, and I went through a hard time, but it's all hitting me harder, and
Sure.
it's all hitting me again, and it's hitting me way harder right now.
Harder. Yeah, that makes so much sense, though, because a loss, a grief, a death is a heart experience, right?
Mhm.
It's our emotional body responds to losses. And what's been so difficult and wonderful, really, is all of the healing that's been going on, both in this lunar cycle that we're wrapping up this week, as well as just the whole second half of the year. In fact, the first little segment of the podcast, we're going to talk about Chiron in just a moment. But last week, what you were responding to, Zoe, is that Venus and the Sun coming together passed through a square with Pluto, like literally the planet that
Huh.
invented death. So heart and conscious awareness in conflict geometry with the planet of death and rebirth hit us all last week, right in the middle of the week, like Wednesday, I think was the day. And oh my God, people wanted to FaceTime me and text. So many near ones and dear ones having really difficult and sometimes surprising deep emotional processes because the shadow got opened up and we got thrown into the deep end of the pool.
Oh, yeah. I gotta say, it's not just me who's kind of going through it. I have friends who are, their grief is hitting them or their depression is opening up again. A lot of tears all around.
Lot of okay. Well, and so yes, I can't pull punches about this. We are about to go through the most intense lunar cycle of 2022. So in that regard, tomorrow's eclipse, it's eclipse season, sweetheart, and it starts tomorrow. So there's some Chiron activity during this period of time, which I'm going to talk about. There's the lunar eclipse tomorrow in Scorpio, the most intense archetype of the zodiac, and eclipse season, which is transformational in and of itself. And then at the very end of the week on Sunday, that's the day that Mars turns around and we start a 2.5-month retrograde where decision making is going to be a little more challenged and how we approach projects and goals is going to be up and potentially difficult. So, yeah. Now, before you sort of flip out emotionally, Zoe, understand that the energy of last week was designed to rip us open in the emotional body. And while the lunar cycle itself, as an eclipse in Scorpio season, will be more intense, the intensity ahead of us is not last week.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? So when I said it's getting more intense, you heard, wait a minute, it's already intense. You mean this intensity is gonna be? It's like, well, it's a different intensity. Sure, you may still be dealing with grief and loss and the deep sadnesses that come up when things like that are part of our experience. You will progress out of last week's intensity and into this week's lunar cycle beginning, and it'll take you on a journey, Zoe. It's going to take everybody on a journey, and everybody did have an intense, heart-opening, shadowy experience last week, but everybody's was different, right? So now I'm talking to everybody, right? That we're all going to be processing and integrating and transforming ourselves through this next lunar cycle and the beginning of Mars's retrograde cycle. And the powerful, deep, brutal opening to the underbelly that we went through last week is part of a deep and profound healing process that we've been going through this year, especially since the end of August. So one of the things that happened for me in my social media daily posts of Red Rope Astrology videos, and even in the daily writings of my daily Astro Alert, the email subscription that I do every day, was that I began to feel like I was obsessed with Venus. Like I even said it in one of my posts. It's like, by now you figured out that I am obsessed with what Venus is doing, which I was and I am, but for a very particular reason. The amount of healing that's possible this year is like unprecedented astrologically. Partly because the world is in an unprecedented sense of craziness, and that when the world is, amplified like this, we are all amplified, and those of us on a conscious path, we can use the intensity to deepen our healing. So Venus hanging out with Pluto in her retrograde in the early part of the year has been bringing deep intensity with her, because she spent 2 years like planning this all out with Pluto. That's what they did in January. Like, how can we fuck people up in the heart as deeply as possible? And they got very excited about that.
Long time to make a good plan.
That's right. There were spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations, and they know what they're doing. But Chiron is busy this last third of the year in a manner that is also deepening and demanding not only healing in a general sort of way, because Chiron is the healing presence, but a specific, amplified, intensified demand to reach all the way back in our histories to the original wounding consciousness, because Chiron has been making contact with the south node of the moon directly since the end of August.
Do you mean the original wound of being born into this world?
Yes, exactly. The south node is the past, the origination point, the entrance into this life, and all of the baggage that we are trying to be free of.
Got it.
The north node is the future, the North Star, the collective movement towards a kind of agreed upon direction forward. The nodes of the moon in a natal chart are quite literally a person's past and their future, their karma, south node, dharma, north node. Out there in cosmic land, it's the nodes of the moon and their relationship with the sun that causes eclipses. So an eclipse is a moment where the new moon and full moon consciousness of all lunar cycles, meaning initiations and release, get amplified and lifted up to this powerful transformational consciousness because it's an eclipse. So what I'm asking you listeners to do here is to make a correlation between the intensity and the transformational power of eclipses and the nodes of the moon. It is because the new moon and full moon in an eclipse touches the nodes that we are processing the past and moving forward into the future in a really remarkable way collectively at the moment of eclipses. So we're really talking about Chiron and the south node here, not the eclipses for a moment. So bear with me, keep with me that now. Think about the south node, which is the past and the baggage we're all trying to release. And that's where the sun is hanging out, generating this next eclipse. Meaning, the eclipse that hits tomorrow and kicks us off into this lunar cycle of Scorpio intensity is designed to connect us to the ideas of the past so that we might set intentions to release the past and have a full moon eclipse experience that allows us to drop some shit from the past as we go. So that's the eclipse setup. So now back to these nodes and the south node as being the sort of container of our baggage. Like I like to say that as we move around psyche, all of the difficult things and the healings we go through and the consciousness that we try to grapple with that doesn't serve us, it gets sort of thrown into the south node as like the garbage bin until the garbage man comes. So the garbage man in this case would be any transit of a planet making contact with the south node of the moon has the potential, based on its consciousness, the planet's consciousness, and the geometry, to have something to do with the past that we're trying to let go of. So remember how I started this whole conversation off was about Venus, the planet that represents how we live in our hearts. and the giving and receiving of love. And in my world, healing of wounds and spiritual practice are synonymous. We are these beings of exceptional light, and our human foibles and challenges diminish how much light we can flood through us.
Yeah, totally.
And that as we heal the wounds that say there is no love, or I can't find love, or I try to express love and it won't come back to me. Ooh, I'm getting all emotional. Those wounds inhibit how much light can flow through us. The light is always there, kids, but we are like lenses that light passes through to generate the expression of our life force. And so healing the heart opens us up. Opening us up allows for more light. More light ends up in more joy, more expressive consciousness, more integration, more wholeness, more yummy. So in late August of this year, Chiron got to just the right place in Aries to stare back to Scorpio, where the south node of the moon is hanging out, and created the great eliminator angle, the 150-degree inconjunct from Chiron to the south node. Now, if you've been listening to me for any appreciable amount of time, you know that the very subtle geometry of the 150-degree inconjunct is like my favorite angle in geometry, even though most astrologers barely talk about this angle. I talk about it ad infinitum because this is
All the time.
All the time. Because this is how we grow and heal. Sometimes we get to do that in big, numinous, powerful moments of paradigm-shifting amazingness. That happens. That's happened to me plenty of time. But most of the growth comes from tiny little adjustments.
Oh, absolutely.
That's right. And we get a little healing in there, and we can suddenly make a safe and healthy choice that maybe a week or two before that we couldn't make. Maybe we haven't fixed the whole problem, if you will, but with each passing moment that we can choose a slightly different way of being because we've healed a little bit of wound, we advance a little bit further. This is the nature of 150 degrees. It says over time, little by little, we will make a shift and a difference. And this particular transit is very directly reflecting the idea that through dancing with the healing presence that lives inside each of us, you know, the part of us that is connected to greater, higher awarenesses and guides our healing, that out there it's called Chiron, but inside it's called the healing presence in you, the ability to heal within you, is working with the past and the baggage and the karma in the great eliminator angle. You couldn't order up a better transit for digging out some of the plaque that's built up in a lot of hard hearts. So the experiences of last week were designed to open hearts through conflict and difficulty.
I'm like feeling this on a personal level. Here's my selfish interpretation. I am an Aquarius with a Pisces rising and a Scorpio moon. And I feel like that Aquarius is like, let's keep it all inside at bay, not present. But
that's
inside,
right.
I'm like, I have so many feelings.
All that water, baby. That is right.
And so now this week is that removal, that opening of my Aquariusness.
So don't you understand in that even though the grief is painful, do you not feel that more love is sort of in there?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's for a greater good. Or like everything we move through so that we come out on the other side, name the lesson, right?
So this geometry started at the end of August and will hit a total of 5 times between August 29th and December 26th. That's a bunch of months where periodically we are being nudged from this need to heal and an availability to touch patterns from the past so that the healing isn't just about the current hurt, but can go all the way back to original hurts upon which other wounds have been built. So one of those hits happens to be today. And tomorrow is the new moon in Scorpio. That's also a partial lunar eclipse. So there's no getting away from the design of this time to foster and generate deep and profound healings. And for me, it's an elegant thing that last week Venus and the Sun came together, heart and conscious awareness. And that on the way to that conjunction that took place this past Saturday, there was this passing event with Pluto. Remember, Venus and Pluto are very well connected. And last week at that square, they were like, hey, baby. Yeah, hey. We're doing it? Yeah, we're doing it. We are breaking hearts and opening up for more love. All right. So there's just something profound about, for me, and something elegant about Chiron in the South Node saying the doorway is open for you to drop the undroppable. Drop the wound that you've been working on for years. And now there's a readiness to release at a deep, 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 deep level. And this wormhole that's being created by tomorrow's eclipse and the notion that it's Scorpio season and that inspires death and rebirth, it's gonna be intense as we move through a profound healing lunar cycle that's designed to transform. And yes, it begins today with Chiron of the South Node and tomorrow with the new moon that's also an eclipse. So before I talk about the actual new moon and the essence of tomorrow's eclipse, let's talk about Mars, because we are in the juicy moment in Mars's cycle. So today, actually, the 24th, Monday, if you're hearing this, if you're listening to this podcast right away, today's the day that Mars reaches 25 degrees of Gemini. And he will stay here for about, several weeks, right? Because this is what happens when a planet is appearing to move backwards or forwards. If the planet is moving backwards and is getting ready to turn around and move direct, there's the appearance of non-movement called the station. So we start that station essentially today. That Mars has gotten to 25 degrees of Gemini. That's as far as he's going to go until next March. And he'll turn around on Sunday. So there's a couple of things to say about this. Number one, though he does not go retrograde until next week, there will be felt experiences from having the planet of movement and action not moving. So right there should be enough information for you to go, well, I wonder what that'll lead to. If I want to move and act, because I'm a human being in a body, and that's what we do. We do. Doing is everything, right? Of course, Venus and the healing wants us to get better at being. So if we are creatures of doing, and the planet that supports us moving about life and taking actions and making decisions and expressing ourselves in that way is not moving, then we're going to feel a certain kind of thing. I think this will be very, very individual. This is a personal planet. So every person will feel it differently. And this is what's difficult as an astrologer talking to everybody. It's like it's going to be different for everybody, but it's going to have this archetypal theme that movement, choices, focus, projects, the physical body, resources of energy, that's all Mars consciousness, will start to get bumpy in all sorts of ways. And if you want to know what that means, just think about the archetype that we put in front of you, which is you want to move and do and act. There's a planet that helps and he ain't moving. So your movements, your choice making, your decisions starting now is gonna become, and this is where I lose the language because it's going to be different for everybody. You know, it's possible that people who are indecisive will be more decisive, you know? Like when the planet of decision is slowing down or moving backwards. People will relate to anger differently during this week of Mars being stationed and during the retrograde. But I can't say globally how because it'll be different for everybody. Because everybody's different. And it's a personal planet that's going retrograde. So, what to do with all of this? Well, one thing is that if you haven't watched my Mars class, it's still available. You can go to michaellennox.com and watch my Mars class. Understand that what I'm putting out for people is that I'm interested in people approaching Mars's retrograde as a positive, conscious opportunity to join with your higher self in ideas about how you embody your life and make a change. As an example, Mars is in Gemini. Gemini rules my 6th house, which is the house of the physical body and daily routine. And I am working with a new fitness person, and I'm trying to create a fitness regime that matches my 59-year-old body because the one that I was doing at like 55 ain't right anymore. I am not throwing barbells around in CrossFit anymore because my body doesn't want that intensity, right? So I'm very specifically focusing on a new regimen with the support of a specific person. And I invite all of you to think about something that might grab your attention to spend November, December, and the first half of January focusing on something physical or goal-oriented or project-oriented. Best if it's not about launching something new, but going into planning, right? Because initiating something new might not be the best thing for a Mars retrograde, but taking advantage of the relentless sense of moving, going, choosing, doing will give us all an opportunity to orient how we embody our lives in a different way. And given all of the healing that is happening from Venus, I can't help but put together a kind of an elegant way that in anthropomorphizing the planets, it's like Venus and Pluto are saying, look what we're doing over here, changing hearts and opening us up to the depths of deeper love possible. And Mars chimes in and says, well, I'll help. I'll stop moving for a couple of months and let everybody catch up so that they can take the healing that's going on in the heart right now, as deep and painful as it is, to funnel those new, opened, vulnerable spaces inside of ourselves to turn into new behaviors, patterns of behavior that are healthy, goals that support and lift us up to be more expressive of what's in our hearts, whether it's project-oriented or just how you want to live in your body. There's such a beautiful deepening and integration possible as we move out of this year and into next year, having allowed Venus to take us on a, yes, brutal, but powerful heart-opening healing, aided and assisted by Chiron, and then picked up by Mars so that over the 2.5 months that he's backwards and the month and a half that he wraps up from January into March, for like 2 months probably, that we will be very different walkers through life by the time we get to next spring. And we will be walking through life with a more open heart because we allowed the deep healing to happen. So, tomorrow, October 25th at 3:48 a.m. Pacific time, the Scorpio moon and the Scorpio sun will come together, forming a new moon that is our first eclipse. So, I know that all of this talk of healing in the heart and painful stuff is right up your alley right now. So this will either be delightful news to you or anticipatorily yucky news. But the sun is at 2 degrees of Scorpio, And the moon will be at 2 degrees of Scorpio at 3:48 a.m. Pacific time. And Venus will be at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So that means this new moon, this deeply transformative, death rebirth inducing lunar cycle new moon in Scorpio has our heart center right there. It's like right there. So in some ways, the difficulties of last week are almost like preparatory for the emotional intensity that this particular new moon is going to have, and therefore the lunar cycle that it kicks off, because Sun, Moon, and Venus are all together.
Dog.
Now, where this becomes beauty, I hear the groaning. Yes. I appreciate the groan, but also understand something, and you understand this, so you know this deeply, that benefit and comfort are not always the same thing, right? That we can have something that's deeply uncomfortable,
Totally understand.
right? That we know is beneficial. And a new moon in Scorpio conjunct Venus is profoundly beneficial. Because now remember, Venus is bringing with her the consciousness of her meetup with Pluto early in the year, and the consciousness of joining up with the sun. You know, so the sun and Venus came together at the end of Libra, and here we are a few days into Scorpio, and they're still together. So that means for the last 3-4 days, conscious awareness and love are in tremendous alignment. But now, not in Libra anymore. In Libra, it was all like, isn't it lovely? Isn't it beautiful how much love can be reflected when we allow the healing? Like that was this past weekend, like yesterday. But then they all dove into the Scorpio pool of deep intensity and death and rebirth, including Venus. And she's like, all right, are you ready to die for this?
What? What, Michael?
You ready to die? Well, it's like this. It's like, I don't mean this literally, kids. Of course, it's that sort of proverbial sense of like, do you desire the thing you desire enough to like do anything to have it? Are you willing to drop into the depths of where you have to die a little bit to self and allow a rebirth to happen so that you can have a greater loving experience in your life? And that's the beauty of a very uncomfortable new moon eclipse season that promises a transformation around love, because the sun, the moon, and Venus are all at the exact same point.
This question of like, how much do you want to change?
That's right.
Okay.
I'm suddenly remembering in SUNY Purchase getting a BFA in acting. I was that kid who came into the acting class having been, you know, the star of Maplewood, New Jersey. If you pick up my high school yearbook, the phrase, "you're gonna make it," is on every fucking page of my high school yearbook.
So you were hot shit.
I was hot shit, and "you're gonna make it" was what I walked out of high school with. And by 25, I knew I had to give up acting, and I didn't know why. And in my second year of Purchase, when it was my turn to have the psychodrama breakdown in the middle of acting class, because we all had one. Most people had theirs freshman year.
Right.
But I was in so much fucking resistance. Mine didn't come till sophomore year. And what did I say, screaming out of my mouth? I don't want to change. I will never forget that day, because I fucking meant it. I meant it. And I didn't have any choice.
Oh, I hear you.
My choice to transform my consciousness was pre my first breath. It was a karmic agreement that I made. And it was not about floating through life as an actor, being superficial and narcissistic and, hyper vigilant on, my career only. That was not to be the path. So trip down memory lane for a second to speak into exactly what you just said, Zoe. That this is a new moon and an eclipse season that demands and guarantees a level of change that it's like, ready or not, here we come. We're going into the deep end. Get ready. Of course, the Chiron in conjunct to the South Node is exact, as I spent quite a bit of time talking about. So the healing that's possible in this lunar cycle is epic. Across the cosmos with the North Node is still Uranus. Uranus, the great awakener and the innovative planet that shoves us into the future very, very fast. He's just 4 degrees away from the North Node still. That means that the changes that we allow this eclipse season can be funneled directly into our futures, especially if we set powerful intentions as we move through today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. There's a grand air trine between Mercury in Libra, Saturn in Aquarius, and Mars, who's not moving and will turn around in a week. We set intentions with our mind, right? It's a thoughtful thing to do. We use our thoughts or our writing. That's a Mercury consciousness. Mercury is free and clear. He's not in any retrograde cycle for 2 months. So the fact that Mercury, who's going to receive the imprint of the intentions we set, is trining Saturn means that we're going to be more sober in our approach in terms of what we intend. Our minds are going to be in alignment, at least close enough, alignment with our sense of responsibility, sobriety, and structure by having a trine between Mercury and Saturn. So we're unlikely to be frivolous with what we're thinking or intending. And that both of these planets are also trining Mars in Gemini means that the intentions we set will have the sort of stabilizing foundational power of Saturn, and our planet of embodiment, choice, and decision-making is going to receive those intentions and say to us, you got it, but it might take a few months before you feel it, right? Mars is going to take our intentions and trek them into our unconscious when he turns around next week. This is going to make Mars's retrograde all the more difficult energetically, especially during eclipse season and the beginning of his backward motion. But from an archetypal perspective of what is possible in the realm of healing and changing how we embody our consciousness, this is a stunning, unprecedented moment to set intentions for things that are different or new or transforming as we go. Like, go deep, kids. Set deep, risky, enormous sense of intentions, because it's possible that the mechanizations of Mars's retrograde can really alter how some of us are living in our bodies, making choices, and creating lives through doing, but differently because we're more open to our beingness, our heart center, our healing consciousness. So I just love the way this very intense new moon really opens us up to not only make changes through intentions we set this lunar cycle, but the notion that intentions we set into motion now, especially those that relate to love, the heart, money, because finances are part of Venus, and intimacy and vulnerability, all of those yummy Venus things. We may not see immediate results, but I'm telling you, by the time we get to next spring, you and I are going to be sitting here talking one day in a podcast going, holy shit, we really are experiencing a different level of embodiment because of the healings that we are allowing now. It's deep, it might be painful and uncomfortable, but it will change the landscape of love in your life. Have at it.
All right, it's dream segment time. Every week, Dr. Michael will interpret dreams that are sent in via email or take a live caller. If you would like your dream interpreted on the podcast, you can go ahead and email us at dreams@michaellennox.com. Hopefully your dream will make it onto the show.
This week we have a dream from Natalia. She says, I'm driving in my red car, going really fast. I suddenly notice that my eyes are closed. I have no idea where I am or what my surroundings are, but I'm moving fast. I try my best to open my eyes, but it is so strenuous and I'm not able to. Ultimately, I stop trying to open my eyes and let my vehicle careen on into the unknown, surrendering fully to the possibility of crashing. One loveliness, Natalia.
Oh my God. I love this dream. This is one of those dreams. Like, I have a friend, Tracy. I've known Tracy since third grade, and we'll be hiking and she'll have a dream like this, where it's so patently obvious what the dream means to me. And she'll tell me the dream and I'll be like, oh yeah, uh-huh. And then we'll be quiet. About 6, 10, 12 paces later, she'll say, Michael, I don't know what it means. And I'll be like, oh, right. It's like, this is one of those dreams. Like, this is such a clear, simple, little, beautiful dream about surrender and trust and knowing that all your needs are met and that we don't have to be overly controlling as we move through life.
Oh, it's that simple. There's no...
It's that simple.
Red car breakdown, eyeball breakdown.
Well, but it is. It's simple, but it goes right with the things that you already know about cars just by, holding space with me for doing this podcast for a bit. Cars are dreams about how we move through life. In fact, what I love about this dream, you picking this dream in a week where Mars is stationing and about to turn around, you can think of this dream, the car is Mars. Meaning, dreams about cars are about how we are moving through our lives, but collectively. Meaning it's the car is shared, the road is shared by others. So dreams about our own path and our own journey, we're going to be walking, moving slowly. That's a dream about like your consideration of the path that you are on. But once we're in a car, it's still your path, but now it's the path through the world that is shared by your community and your coworkers and the other people, that you interact with and the world at large, cars. So it's a driving dream. Natalia is in consideration of her movement through life. Now, I'm going to assume maybe that Natalia has a red car in life, and that may be so, but it's still a dream where colors are symbolic. It's a dream she could have dreamt of any car. So even if she has a red car and she dreamed of a red car, it's a dream where colors are irrelevant. Or maybe hyper-relevant is rather, better thing to say, because red car means root chakras and needs met. That color is about, are we grounded? Are we feeling safe? Do we have all that we need? The red color is the first color of the spectrum. Therefore, it connects with that first chakra of the root, where we are in consideration of our needs being met. So right away, we have Natalia is thinking about her journey through life, and we know she's moving fast. So that, to me, that's just like, life does move fast, and that can be overwhelming at times. And so her eyes are closed, and at first that seems like a problem.
Right.
But the end of the dream tells us that it's not only not a problem, the essence of the dream is that surrender is key. So that I would say that Natalia's need to open her eyes is reflecting things like trying to control circumstances, attempting to move through life, looking at things to see where we're going when we know none of us know where we're going. That's part of the excitement challenge of the journey, is that we don't know where we're going, and that mystery is both fabulous and horrible. And she gets to it. Like, that's the beauty of the dream, is that this is actually important to me to help to codify how I'm perceiving the dream, at least as she presents it to us. Her eyes are closed already. Like, she doesn't say, I'm driving in my red car, and then I close my eyes. She finds herself in the dream driving, and her eyes are closed. That tells me there's something organic about this posture, not something negated or problematic, but actually what is up.
Yeah.
So the journey through her dream is to come to that place where she attempts to open her eyes, which would be like, I attempted to control the situation. I attempted to think I knew where I was going, but that the ultimate message was surrender. Close your eyes, trust that you know what you're doing. It's strenuous to try to, she even used that word. I love that she used the word strenuous. Because it's fucking strenuous trying to control shit that's not controllable.
Yeah.
Losing battle.
Oh, yeah. Fighting a losing battle.
Nothing is within your control but your perceptions and your thoughts. Period.
Yeah.
So the dream is exemplifying where Natalia is right now. She is at a place where she is learning a deeper lesson of surrender. And so, message to us all, kids, just close your eyes and trust that your car knows where it's going.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Embodiment, Astrology and Dreams with Dr. Michael Lennox. You can find us on Apple Music, the iHeartRadio app, and anywhere you find your favorite shows. Head on over to michaellennox.com for information on astrology readings, the Daily Astro Alert subscription, upcoming classes, and to join the mailing list.